Might be better off. This is just audio. I believe we are live. What is going on, everybody? Monday, November 12th, Veterans Day. 9-game slate. I'm getting there. I had a good NFL day. I think you did as well. Unless you were being sarcastic last night when I was out.
No, I really did beat you by 3%.
You really did, though. But positive NFL day. I'll take that. How was the rest of your weekend, Adam?
It was good. Basketball. Saturday was one of the more frustrating basketball nights I've had in a while. Just foul trouble cost me a lot of money, but it was still a good night. Football yesterday was good. Basketball kind of sucked, but it was a pretty good weekend. And I'm not hurting this morning like I think you are.
Yeah, I'm just not crisp. Physically, I feel pretty good. I got a good night's sleep. That's what's key. We weren't out till a crazy hour, but the wedding itself, lots of shenanigans. I dropped them in the Slack before we started. Speaking of the Slack, let's drop this link in here. So yeah, we got 9 games. Tons of craziness in a lot of these spots. Wolves playing today, Sixers playing today, Clippers Warriors is crazy. Bulls, Mavs the Bulls are bad. Oh, Thunder. I'm excited to talk about it. Not really a great game to start with though. Wizards Magic. Start on the Wiz side, I guess. 112.75 implied total. Magic 106.75. They're priced very nicely on DK. Wall is 10-2 on FanDuel, 8,600 on DraftKings, which is just ludicrous. Let's start with Wall. He's really popular, 38% expected ownership on DraftKings right now. I would want to play him, though. It's a great spot. Orlando, not great backcourt defense. I'm rambling. What do you think of John Wall?
Yeah, I mean, in general, this is a game that I'm actually surprisingly interested in, but Wall's definitely one of those guys. He's someone that normally I don't really like to roster until he's down close to $8,000 because he doesn't. He always has a high floor, but it's like he doesn't hit a ceiling all that often. But with the way Washington's running their rotation right now, I just can't stop playing him because he's out there playing 40 plus minutes a night. Like projecting him to play 40 minutes feels almost conservative at this point because as long as the game stays close, we've seen 2 games in a row now that he's played every single minute of the second half. So you're talking about $8,600 for, John Wall playing probably as many or more minutes than anyone on the slate in a pretty decent matchup against Orlando. So it's really hard for me not to like him, even though he's someone that normally I don't like all that much.
What will you cap his minutes projection at?
40.
Okay. Yeah, that's insanity.
I've been going 40 with Wall, 38 for Beal.
Okay. Oh man, that's how he gets the 38% expected ownership. I mean, it should be higher than that.
Right. It's a really weird spot, especially this early in the season, because normally I cap almost everyone at 36 and don't feel comfortable going above that. But Washington's been so bad this year. You have to believe Scott Brooks is coaching for his job. Their bench is absolutely awful. If you don't play Wall, you're playing Satoransky, who's pretty decent, but it also ends up translating to more minutes for Austin Rivers, who sucks. So they just play Wall as much as humanly possible.
So Wall looks great on DK. Beal 8,400 on FanDuel, 7,100 on DK. He looks great. He's expected to be owned. Dwight Howard 6,100 looks great. He's expected to be chalk. These top 3 guys for Washington are just chalk, but I don't see any real reason to avoid it. You could talk me out of Dwight Howard, but even still, it's the price that's so appealing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I wouldn't be too concerned by Bradley Beal's last game in terms of minutes either. He picked up a couple of fouls in that first rotation, and I think that's why we saw his minutes down. Outside of that game, he's been playing essentially 1 or 2 minutes less than John Wall every single game. And so I think you're getting 38, probably 38 minutes, maybe 36, but either way, at 7,100 on DraftKings, that's really hard to pass up. And we saw the 33 or 34-minute game from Dwight Howard against Miami that we've been talking about ever since he came back. The last time Washington played Orlando, Howard didn't play any fourth quarter minutes, neither did Porter, neither did Morris, but that wasn't an intentional thing. It had nothing to do with matching up with Orlando. It's because Orlando had jumped out to a 25-point lead, and then the bench unit brought Washington back, so Brooks just left them in. There's no reason to think you shouldn't look at that and be like, oh, this game went small or this game did that, because that it completely wasn't intentional. It's just that unit brought Washington back, so they stayed in. So I think you project Howard for 34 minutes here. I think you project Porter and Keith for a bunch of minutes. I think that actually I'm curious to see how you feel about it, but I think Keith is one of my favorite, at least at 9:30 in the morning, one of my favorite tournament plays today, because people don't roster him, and if you look at his game logs, they're super ugly. Because in Washington's last game, he was in foul trouble. He only played 15 minutes. The game before that was the one against Orlando, where he didn't play the fourth quarter. But where he's not in foul trouble, you should continue seeing his minutes staggered with Dwight Howard. So he's getting minutes at the 5. He should play around 32 to 34 minutes, and he's $4,400.
I'm a fan. He's 46 on FanDuel, so even more appealing there.
Right.
Especially, it's always easy to pay down at that spot. We're projecting him for 17% ownership on FanDuel, which is right where I was on my first crunch. And we're projecting 9 on DK, and that's a spot where I'd be comfortable to be ahead of that. So I'm with you. I love Markieff Morris here.
Yeah. And I mean, Porter, I think, is a good play too. Like this entire, especially looking at the DraftKings pricing, this entire Wizards team is just too cheap. And with how bad they are defensively, it's not even like you run a huge risk of them blowing out Orlando.
Yeah, Wall-Beal, Howard, Porter, all really, really good price points on DK. Like I said, Markieff's is better on FanDuel, but still 4,400. It's not as if that's a bad price. It just happens to be better somewhere else. But they all grade out really well for me. I would imagine if I were playing on DK, I would get a lot of Wall and a lot of Dwight Howard. But yeah, Porter for 5K. I mean, it's just, they're underpriced across the board.
Yeah, I thought most of these guys, if they were $1,000 more expensive, I would still be sitting here making at least an argument for them. Yeah. So with where they're priced, it's just impossible for me not to like all of them.
Let's talk about it. Or did you have anybody else you wanted to touch on for the Wizards, like Oubre or Austin Rivers?
No, because if things go according to plan, the entire bench just barely plays. You'll get probably low 20s maybe from Kelly Oubre. Everyone else playing lower than that. So, and on a 9-game slate, I don't think you really have to play around with creating off the wall lineups where the bench unit goes crazy again or something.
Agreed. Let's talk about Orlando. Caveat here, the health of Aaron Gordon and whether or not he's playing. I currently have him in. If he is out, everything that we're about to say is useless. That's best I could do. Vooch is 8,500 on both sites. That's going to be a real tough play for me on DraftKings, but feasible on FanDuel. There's just so many good centers right now. I have a hard time getting to anyone like with any sort of passion. Embiid, Towns, Whiteside, Gobert, Gasol, Vooch, Adams, Jordan, Willie Cauley-Stein, Howard, Randall, Ayton. Like all of these guys are very relevant on a day-to-day basis. Hard to hash out. So would I be okay with a couple shares of Vooch? Sure. It's probably not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at as well, especially on DraftKings. I agree with you. The price on FanDuel is more appealing. On DraftKings, it's just going to be really, really hard to get there with any regularity because he's priced. I love the matchup for Vooch, but he's priced almost the same as Karl-Anthony Towns, who we'll get to, and I'm sure we'll both love. Yep. He's more expensive than an entire $6,000 to $7,000 mid range of high upside guys that at least a couple of them are probably going to have big games and make it so if you roster Vooch, you need a ceiling game. You don't. If you get 45 points at 8,500, you're probably not in great shape. So it's just going to make it really hard to get to him. And it's a big enough slate where I don't want to force him in just for low ownership, I don't think.
I agree. You going to do anything with Aaron Gordon if you know that he is in? 7,600 on FanDuel. It looks like Orlando's the opposite of Washington in that their prices on FanDuel are significantly better. I'm going to play some Gordon if he's in.
Yeah, if he's in, I really like him. We both, I think, liked him a lot in the last game against Washington.
Yeah.
It's just such a good spot for him because Washington doesn't rebound well. They play fast. They don't play good defense. They're sloppy. They turn the ball over constantly. So there's just so many different ways for Aaron Gordon to pile up points here and he's playing huge minutes. He in his last game, he played 41 or 42 minutes. And after the game, Steve Clifford was just like, yeah, well, it's really difficult to take him off the floor. So I just don't do it, and I don't know. I don't know if his ankle injury will affect that at all. But if we're even going to get 36 minutes out of him against this Washington team, I still really, really like him.
Same. Guy that's standing out the most for me is Terrence Ross. 4,600 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. He's just too cheap for the amount of minutes he's playing right now. What do you think of Terrence Ross?
I don't think I'll get there at 5,100 on DraftKings just because, you look at that price, he's $100 more than Otto Porter. He's $700 more than Keith just from this game. And so I have trouble getting there. I think it's a good spot for him, but he just doesn't do enough for me outside of scoring to where I like paying an elevated price tag on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's totally different. I think that with him being even cheaper over there, that there's more of an argument for him.
Yeah, we only have him at 7% expected ownership right now. I got 20 on my first crunch, and I'm pretty happy about that. Just seems like a really easy spot to save. If I look at the shooting guard list on FanDuel, he's the bottom. Like, you can see a pretty clear line in my data, and he is the last guy for it from a salary perspective. So I'd expect to use Ross a lot as like my lowest end punt.
Yeah.
Not counting like full on $3,500 drop type guys.
Right. So do you want to touch real quick on if Gordon sits?
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah. So
let me pull up Popcorn Machine too.
Yeah, so we saw yesterday, with Gordon out, it's kind of tough to take too much away from that game because Orlando was in control of the entire game. But a couple of things that stood out were Mo Bamba played no minutes at the 4 in that one. I wouldn't expect big lineups from Orlando in this game against Washington because Washington doesn't play that big. So I would feel pretty confident still projecting Bamba just for backup center minutes. And what that means is that you can pretty confidently project Jarrell Martin for around 26 minutes again. Ken Birch didn't play at all, which bodes well for Martin. He's still minimum price at $3K on DraftKings. Wes Iwundu played about 34 minutes splitting time between the 3 and the 4. He also is $3,000 on DraftKings. Not a very productive player, but $3,000 is $3,000.
Yeah.
So both of those guys, but then also you would have Jonathan Simmons at 3,300, who I would project to play about 24 minutes in a great matchup with Washington. That would become one of my favorite value plays in terms of upside. Maybe not quite the minutes floor that Martin or Iwundu have, but still plenty of upside for Simmons if he's going to play 33 minutes. Then you also get more usage and facilitating for Evan Fournier. You get a little bit more for Vucevic. They're both priced again to the point though where they would still be secondary options for me.
Yeah, Jonathan Simmons is probably the guy that ends up benefiting the most, at least for me. If Gordon is out, moving him from 20 minutes to, 29 or something like that, is just going to have him blow value out of, like, at 3,700, he becomes a guy that is a very, very easy play at large amounts of ownership.
Yeah. I think 29 might be high on him, but even at like 24, he is good.
You don't think with, how many did he play here? 28?
He played a bunch, but it was, I can't see on NBA rotations and Popcorn Machine isn't working, but it looks like Fournier must have picked up a foul or something at the end of the second quarter because Simmons played. Yeah, Simmons subbed out with like 4 minutes to go in the second and then immediately subbed right back in for Fournier and closed it out. So he picked up like an extra 4 minutes there. I think that he would end up in like the 24 to 26 range.
I don't know why they pulled Fournier though. It was only 2. Like, it's only his second foul.
It was weird too because the game was clearly out of hand. Like, just let him finish the half. He's not going to play the fourth anyway.
Right. That's a weird substitution.
But yeah, so even if Simmons doesn't come back in there, he plays like 13 first half minutes, so you get him around 26 probably.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And that's if he doesn't close over, Jarrell Martin or something, which is entirely possible.
Either way, yeah. If he's playing 25 minutes, I still love him as a FanDuel punt.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. 3,300 on DraftKings would stand out as well.
Yeah.
Like you could easily justify just not locking. I don't want to use that word, but playing a ton of the 3K Jarrell Martin, Jonathan Simmons, and maybe some Iwundu, even though he just doesn't do anything.
God, he really doesn't do anything. That is one of the more empty
Yeah.
players in the entire league.
If guys like that are gonna have good games, though, it comes against teams like the Wizards that play fast, turn the ball over, don't rebound, don't play defense. It just makes it so hard to not do things in 32 to 34 minutes.
Yeah, if you can't luck into a nice stat line from that, you're probably not very good in DFS
Right.
purposes. Anything else you want to touch on Washington, Orlando?
Nope. There's a lot in that game, though.
There really is. Hopefully Gordon just plays and makes it easier.
Yeah.
Alrighty, here we go. Miami Heat hosting the Philadelphia 76ers. Heat 1.5 point favorites. No Jimmy Butler tonight. Expected to debut on Wednesday. So we'll start on the Heat side. Chalk Goran Dragic on FanDuel, 5,900. I think we should start with him, even though he's the third most expensive guy. I'm not entirely sure why he would be chalk. I like the price, but 30% projected ownership right now is steep. 20% on DK at 58. Surprised by that. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I mean, I do really like the price. The one thing that I guess is a concern to me, I think he's productive when he plays, but with so many teams already running their guards out there, especially 36 to, in Washington's case, 40 minutes, the fact that you're probably getting around 32 minutes from Goran Dragic kind of makes me always a little bit lower on him than other people are, just because he's not the most productive guy. Even when he does play, he's closer to a point per minute guy than anything else. But then if you're only going to get 32, maybe 33 or 34 minutes from him, it just makes it a little bit harder for him to actually put up a monster ceiling for you in tournaments.
Yeah, I agree. I would not be anywhere near 30. I hope that holds. I would love to come in at half of that. I'd get a lot more out of it, I think. Let's talk Whiteside. I didn't get any. We're not projecting any ownership. Does he come to play here against Embiid, or does Embiid rent some real estate in Whiteside's head as well?
I mean, I'm not too concerned about Whiteside having a bad game here. I'm pulling up now to see if there's anything from previous matchups, but the issue for me is just the price tag. Kind of the same thing we talked about with Vucevic.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that Whiteside has upside. He's faced Embiid 4 times since the start of the 2016 season. He's done pretty well. 52 fantasy points in 33 minutes, 20 and 18, 46 and 34, 43 and 29. So he's been fine. It's just that, even if Whiteside goes for 50, you probably are going to have mid-range guys that approach that score as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't see any real reason to go there. I don't really see much reason to go to Miami in general. I did get a little bit of Justice Winslow, and then Kelly Olynyk is oddly priced at 3,800 on FanDuel, which I think is at least worth a peek. $300 above the minimum. I don't trust Kelly Olynyk at all, but there's always those games like once every 3 weeks where Olynyk accidentally plays 35 minutes. And I don't know why that.
Yeah, I don't know.
What'd you say?
It's just hard for me to get there now. I mean, it would obviously be FanDuel only.
Correct. Yeah. I don't like him as a value play unless you can drop him completely.
Right, exactly. Like you basically need like Winslow to get in foul trouble or something, because right now Olynyk's just kind of buried in their rotation.
Yeah. I hate Miami.
Yeah. They're such a weird they're just really annoying for DFS purposes, because when they're all healthy, you basically end up just ignoring all of them. And then when Dragic or someone's out, they just all end up being 40% owned.
Yeah, it's all or nothing with this team. Like Rodney Magruder for 5K, I think is underpriced, and I also have no interest in him.
Yeah, I do think that he's underpriced. He's slowly coming down on DraftKings, down to 5,700. But yeah, I mean, they just have so many wings. They have so many guys that can defend basically every position on the floor that they become interchangeable, and it's just a mess. Josh Richardson would be the guy, in addition to Dragic just being too cheap. Richardson would be the guy that I probably have the most interest in, but I doubt that I end up getting very much.
7,700 on FanDuel.
Yeah, 72 on DraftKings. Just he's the one guy on this team you can count on to play huge minutes still.
Yeah.
The usage has been up this season. He takes a hit with Dragic back in terms of assist percentage. So he's not someone that I'm super high on. But if I had to take someone other than Dragic from this team, it would be Richardson.
That's fair. I can't believe his price is so high now. I just picture him sitting around like 6K all of last year.
Yeah.
And now it's not even, he's not even in spitting distance of that. Let's talk Philly. No Covington. No Sarich. Nobody else on this team right now. It's kind of thin. We'll talk about the big man first. 10-7 for Embiid on FanDuel. 10-1 on DK. I love him here. Absolutely love him. Am I crazy, or should I not have a ton of Embiid? Because I'm going to have a ton of Embiid.
I probably won't, but it has nothing to do with Embiid. I'm not concerned about this matchup. He hasn't had a ton of success against Whiteside in that limited sample. He's averaged about 1 1/3 fantasy points per minute, but he is the kind of guy that I would expect to be fine against Whiteside. He doesn't rely on just scoring at the rim. He can pull Whiteside away from the basket, which is where Whiteside is not as effective as a defender. So I'm not concerned at all about Embiid. The only problem for me is just opportunity cost on this slate, because up at the top, you have Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, who we'll talk about. You have Towns at center for a little bit less. You have just that whole mid-range we've already talked about. And so it just makes it tough to pay all the way up at center for me. But I like Embiid, so it's not like I'm going to talk anyone off of it.
What do you think about Simmons then? 9,900 on FanDuel, 9K on DK.
It's just really tough for me to get there too. I don't dislike him. I think he has a high floor, but I believe on DraftKings, he's $700 less than Paul George, who I really like. I really like Durant at that position. So, yeah, I mean, if I end up with Simmons, then fine. I think there's a better chance that I end up with Simmons than Embiid in lineups.
Okay.
But I don't see, and that's just because of position, not because of the players. But I doubt that I end up prioritizing either one.
They're popping so much for me. Simmons in particular, and we only have Simmons projected for 13% ownership. So it looks like I'll be able to have a pretty sizable bite of Embiid and Simmons and won't have to go too crazy for it. That's usually what makes me happy, when guys that I get a ton of at the high end don't have much ownership. It should give me pause, but it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I always like when anyone I get a lot of isn't highly owned, because I just assume that I'm right and everyone else is wrong.
It's a great spot to be mentally, to just assume that everyone else is wrong. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, shit, wasn't me.
Yeah, and then you find a reason, foul trouble, bad shooting, whatever. You can always justify it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the rest of the value on Philly. Redick, Fultz. I don't know. Do you want anybody else on this team tonight?
Mike Muscala.
Okay.
He's back. He's 3,500 on DraftKings. He was playing relatively big minutes even when Covington and Sarich were there. It's not like he's coming back from a lower body injury. He just has a broken nose or whatever. He's going to be wearing a mask. Yeah, he'll be fine. I have a hard time seeing him not playing mid to upper 20s, I think. I mean, I'm assuming Wilson Chandler's still going to be limited. They have never shown any inclination to run Korkmaz out there for any more playing time than they have to. Granted, he did have a good game last time out, but that's not a huge deal, I don't think. Amir Johnson hasn't been playing the 4, so I don't really see how Muscala doesn't play, at least enough minutes to comfortably pay off a $3,500 price tag here.
If he's wearing a mask, can we call him Mike Mascala? I'm
leaving now.
That's the kind of stuff that's going through my head right now. I'm bringing nothing to the table, but quality jokes. Redick projected for 23% ownership on FanDuel, 5,500. I got more than the 23%. Do you have a problem with him or his price right now? He's pretty popular in DK as well.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him at all. He's never someone that at 9:30 in the morning I'm going to be sitting here like pounding the table like I can't wait to play JJ Redick.
Yeah.
But yeah, no issue with him at all. The price tag's nice. The minutes should be there. He's productive enough. Yeah.
Are we interested in TJ McConnell? 34 minutes against Memphis. Obviously, we can throw out 5 of those from overtime, but is he just gonna? If he gets big minutes, do we have to be paying attention here? I didn't have him with big minutes. I'm not expecting it, but should we be?
I don't think so because I'm not high on his minutes and I'm not high on Landry Shamet's minutes either because I think that Chandler and Muscala coming back, it just affects the entire rotation. Like they started a 4-guard lineup here with Redick, Shamet, Fultz, Simmons, and they basically played small the entire game against the Memphis team that is also willing to do that. You had Jonah Bolden only play 14 minutes. So basically by inserting Wilson Chandler's, 15 to 18 minutes, that covers Bolden.
Yeah.
Then you get Muscala's minutes in there. And assuming
Muscala.
Yeah, sorry. So I think basically what ends up happening is that Shamet goes from playing his, 37 minutes probably back to 24, 25. You get McConnell cutting back from 30 minutes down to probably around like 15. I think basically it just flattens out the guys who played the cheap guys who played huge minutes against Memphis.
Yeah, I have McConnell in for 15 minutes, so we are on the exact same page there. Jacob Treadway says, Muscala instantly liked the video. That's great. And everyone else should like it and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell thing so you get notified when we're doing this. If you don't have an account with us, go to Osmo.com, sign up using the promo code NBA Strategy. 7-day free trial. And you could use Fantasy Cruncher if you like. But make sure you pick a Fantasy Cruncher package or you're going to end up emailing me at support and I'm going to get mad about it. Anyway.
By the way, it took less than a half hour into the show for the first person in Slack to tag me about my shirt.
Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised it took that long.
Yeah, I might have just missed ones before it, but that was the first one I saw.
Chat is slacking on their jokes.
Man, you are on fire today.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's all I've got. It's all I've got here. Any faults before we close out this game?
Never faults.
That'll work. The Toronto Raptors taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. 118.25 implied total for the Raptors. 111.25 for the Pels. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but I'm going to have a lot of Kawhi Leonard. 9,400 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DK. That price is too cheap for me. I'm in for lots of Kawhi.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know how much I'll end up with, but he's finally at a price point now where I am interested, especially in this spot against New Orleans, a team that plays fast, a team that doesn't play a ton of defense. They just don't really have the pieces to do it. And you're talking about Leonard being a guy that still is going to have a usage rate up in the low 30s most likely. He's going to play around 36 minutes. So I think that there's a pretty good chance I end up getting him. Like I would rather play Kawhi than Ben Simmons.
So would I, for sure. We have Kawhi projected for 25% ownership on FanDuel right now, 16 on DK. I'm going to have 50 or so on FanDuel without really even skipping a beat. I'm pretty pumped about it. Go Kawhi. I'll just be watching that stupid laugh video, but the one where it's just the NBA music. That one's the best one. Kyle Lowry, 8,700 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DraftKings. I just can't ever get there. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's Kyle Lowry, I guess. But I'm just not interested.
To me, it's he's priced right now to where, like, if Leonard were out, he would be a really good play. But with Leonard in, I just can't get there. And even if you just think about guys we've talked about already, he's basically the same price as John Wall. You would project Lowry to play probably 6 minutes less than Wall.
Yeah.
He's not that much more. It's not like he's a lot more productive on a permanent basis than Wall. So outside of ownership, there's not really a strong argument to be made for going to Lowry. And on a 9-game slate, you kind of don't have to worry about taking stands like that quite as much.
Yeah, I won't be there. I really won't be on any part of this game outside of Kawhi Leonard. You can talk me into a little Danny Green for 4,800 on FanDuel just because of sort of how that position works. But Otherwise, like I don't have any interest really in Ibaka or Jonas or Siaka, like any of these guys. It's pretty much just
Yeah,
Kawhi.
yeah. From Toronto, it's basically just Kawhi for me.
Cool. Pels, 12,200 for Anthony Davis on FanDuel, 11,600. We have him projected for 1% ownership on DK. I'd expect it to be a couple points higher than that, but still, that's a tough sell. That's a big time price tag. This is not a great spot for him. I can't imagine wanting to have much volume of Anthony Davis. Are you looking at him at all? Am I missing anything here?
I think that for me, it's going to come down to the health of Mirotic. If Mirotic is out, I just think that you see enough of a boost for Davis in terms of basically everything, but especially his usage. It's one enormous mouth that you don't have to feed. Granted, it's replaced by Julius Randle, but I just think that the upside gets a little bit higher for Davis, and if he is going to be low owned, I mean he's matchup proof. I'm not too concerned about the fact that he's facing Toronto. So in tournaments, I would have some interest. I still easily would go to Kevin Durant in cash games and probably have more Kevin Durant in tournaments as well. But I do think that Mirotic makes a difference for me in terms of Davis and also obviously in terms of Julius Randle.
Next closest power forward on FanDuel, Lamarcus Aldridge, 8,400, so $2,800. No, that's not. That's $3,800. That's terrible math. That's a huge gap. Yeah, it's going to be a tough sell for me. I got 5%. I'm happy with it. If it goes crazy, he goes crazy, but I don't think that I will regret it all that much at that price tag.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at as well. It's just hard for me to justify paying all the way up for Davis in this spot than Durant or George or Kawhi or even Simmons at 9K, and that's without getting into guys like Embiid and everyone else. So yeah, it's just going to be tough, I think.
Okay. Any interest in Drew Holiday? Doesn't really feel like an overwhelmingly good Drew spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it. If you go there, it's purely a minutes play. If Peyton's out, you're still going to get 38 to 40 minutes of Drew handling the ball a ton, which is really appealing. But it's not a spot where I expect him to produce at a super high clip.
So let's talk about Peyton. As of right now, I have him projected in. He is questionable, so that's the stance that I generally take. If he is in, he should be very highly owned on DraftKings at 5,200, unless we hear something about his minutes.
Yeah, I think that Peyton ends up coming in as a really, really good value play if he plays, assuming that he can play close to his normal amount of run.
That's just, 52 is just crazy. I have no interest in him whatsoever for 69 on FanDuel.
Yeah, it's a spot where normally DraftKings is pretty good about when guys are out, they kind of put a floor on their price so that when they come back, they don't instantly become the top value on the slate, but they haven't done that with Peyton.
No, they have not. Are you going to look at Mirotic at all? 7,700 on both sites.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so much on this slate that I don't really see the need to go to Mirotic.
Yeah, and also not a great spot for him.
No.
He is not matchup proof. I don't have anything else for Raptors Pels, do you?
I do not.
Moving on. Ooh, this is tasty. The Chicago Bulls. I don't know what I just said. Chicago Bulls hosting the Dallas Mavericks. 111.25 implied total for the Bulls. 109.25 for the Mavs. So 2-point favorites for Chicago. That's embarrassing. The entire Chicago Bulls team is priced better on DraftKings than they are on FanDuel. We'll start with the guy at the top, Zach Lavine, 9,500 on FanDuel, 8,300 on DK. I have no reason to suspect that Zach Lavine is a bad play today on DraftKings. Bulls defense is just bad. I mean, Dallas's defense is also bad.
Yeah, and I talked about it a little bit, but I think that Ryan Arcidiacono being inserted into the Chicago lineup in place of Cameron Payne, if anything, it gives a boost to Zach Lavine because Cam Payne's, an 18.5% usage guy. Arcidiacono is at 7.9% this season when he plays alongside Parker and Lavine. You see Lavine, his usage alongside Parker and Arcidiacono at 36% this season in 116 minutes. Jabari Parker at 26.5%. So, and Wendell Carter jumps to 22%. So I think that it just makes it even more appealing for a guy in Lavine who plays around 38 minutes in competitive games and is this entire offense. He doesn't even have to be that efficient. On DraftKings especially, where his price tag is, I believe, 8,300. He doesn't even have to be that efficient. He has to be like a point per minute guy. And with Arcidiacono and Parker on the floor so far this season, he's averaged 1.15 DraftKings points per minute. Sorry, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute with a 52.4% true shooting percentage that is 5 points below his overall season average. So he's been really inefficient, and he's still just blowing his price tag out of the water with this group.
Yeah, it's really hard to not want to land on a bunch of Lavine. And what's crazy, we have his projected ownership at 5% on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be that low, but the last game he played, which was Saturday, he was like 17% owned. It was just weird. I mean, I had him projected as the fourth highest raw point scorer on the slate. He didn't quite get there, but it was, I think I had 60% of him and felt good about it. And he came in at like 17%.
I would want like basically this entire Bulls team on DK. Wendell Carter still 6,400, continues to be cheap. Jabari 5,800, just dramatically underpriced compared to FanDuel.
Yeah.
Justin Holiday, I guess.
Yeah. And even Arcidiacono is cheap enough. If I'm definitely playing the ownership game with Arcidiacono today because he was like 11% owned on Saturday. He did good enough for his price, but he's just the kind of guy that if he gets ownership in tournaments, I'm easily just going elsewhere because he doesn't shoot enough for me to be too concerned about him killing me. Yeah. He has to be really efficient. He has to run into steals, but he's most likely going to be a good point per dollar play. So if people are going elsewhere, then that's when I would look to roster him some.
Definitely. Do you want to touch on Wendell Carter or Jabari at all?
Yeah, I mean, Wendell Carter obviously is phenomenal. He's been playing really, really well. The usage is climbing. I mentioned that in his limited sample alongside this group with Arcidiacono, he has a 22% usage rate. So I think there's a lot to like there for Carter. And then Parker, I would just caution to not go too crazy ownership-wise on him because he's going to project as one of the top plays on the slate, point per dollar on DraftKings, just because of how much usage he gets and how many minutes he plays. But he's still pretty empty when he's not scoring, and he's an inefficient, inconsistent scorer. So one mistake that I've made a couple of times is just having too much of my night hinge on Jabari when I don't need 40% of him. I can get by with like 20 to 25.
Yeah, he's pretty chalk right now, 28%. So if that's not appealing to you, I can see not going crazy about it. I don't see this as a spot where I would want to just be miles over the field on Jabari.
Right. I've more or less just been trying to hit the field with him because if he gets there, he's going to have a good game, but he's just so inconsistent. Yeah. It was just something that I burned myself on Saturday. I decided to just take a huge Jabari stand along with Lavine because I love that spot. And I just had a ton of good lineups being wrecked by Jabari Parker, who was only like 14% owned, but I had him in 40.
Do you have anybody else you want to touch on from Chicago? This is a really just dreadful bottom of the team.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Lavine, Parker, Carter, and then if you need Arcidiacono, he's cheap.
All right, let's talk Dallas. We'll start with DeAndre. 7,600 on FanDuel, 7,000 on DraftKings. I'm certainly going to have some. Right now, I'm with the field. We've got him in the high teens in ownership. I think 7K is a pretty nice price point for him, especially going up against the Bulls.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice price point, and he's one of the reasons why I just can't get that excited about some of the other good centers that we've already talked about because him and Carter both, they're in this price range, $7,000 or less, and they're going to play, barring foul trouble, low to mid 30s in minutes, probably pushing 34 or 35. Even if he goes out and gets a point per minute, he's not hurting you at $7,000, and he should pretty easily be able to do better than that. So, yeah, I like DeAndre quite a bit here.
Perfect. Makes me happy. I like when we're in agreement. That's how I feel about DeAndre today. What about Luka? 77 on FanDuel, 7,600 on DK. I think he's just overpriced.
I do like that he finally got small forward eligibility back on DraftKings. That makes it a little bit easier to get there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that he's pretty fairly priced. He's someone that I really like. I do think that he sees some positive regression in terms of assists this season. Going forward, I think that he's probably a little bit more productive fantasy player than we've seen so far. I like that he does everything on the floor, and I love the matchup. But it's just kind of it's one of those spots where I don't think 7,600 for him is really too expensive. I think 7,600 for him relative to all the guys that are underpriced on DraftKings makes it tough.
Right. That's a good way to say it. Like, he's $200 more expensive than Devin Booker.
Right. Exactly.
I can't. can't justify it.
Yeah, I mean he's $500 more than Bradley Beal playing 38 minutes.
Right. There's too many other options. Dennis Smith Jr. I guess he's having like I can't figure out if he's having a bad season or a good season. I don't even. It might be both at the same time. I don't know how to get him right any longer. I don't know what he does.
I mean,
like him today?
If I'm judging it based off of how he's done on my fantasy lineups this year, he's having probably the worst year of anyone in the NBA. The price tag's cheap. There's upside. Wes Matthews being doubtful for this game, I think, makes his minutes maybe a little bit more secure, which is nice. You're just still taking a chance on an inconsistent player, but I think that his price tag is where you would like to do it at, and it's obviously a good matchup against Chicago.
Couple games in the high 30s and then just cratering with a 10 spot in 23 minutes. I can't wrap my head around him, but price tag $6K, $5,600, worth a peek. Harrison Barnes is the chalkiest play of the day today. You want to talk about that? Barnes 5,500 on FanDuel, 5K on DraftKings, and the chalkiest guy on both sites.
I mean, I think the price tag's just really way too low. I would project Barnes to play 34 or 35 minutes here. I would project him to score close to a point per minute. That gives him a really, really, really good score at $5,000. For the season, he's average. No. For the season, he is averaging 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. So even if he plays 35 minutes at 0.8, he's pretty easily paying off 5K. Yeah. And then you factor in this matchup, and you would expect him to produce more than that.
Do you have an aversion to him being 50% owned?
I have an aversion to anyone being 50% owned, but
sure. A good point.
Yeah, but I mean, it just feels like a really high floor, high ceiling spot.
I think that we might not have talked about the best guy on this team today. I'm getting a lot of JJ Barea in my crunches. Yep. 4,200 on FanDuel, 4,000 on DraftKings. We're projecting mid-20s ownership, but he's just it's the minute. Like if you knew you were going to get 30 minutes out of JJ Barea today, oh my god, I might have him in 100% of my lineups. He's so efficient.
I don't think he gets to 30, but I think that you get into the mid-20s here. Yeah. And Matthews being out, I think, benefits him because we'd seen he's been kind of limited this year in terms of production because a lot of his time has just been as solely the backup point guard. And we haven't seen a lot of real small Dallas backcourt lineups. We'd seen Jalen Brunson in the rotation a lot. Now you have Devin Harris in there. But with Matthews out, that just opens up so many minutes that Barea kind of is going to, I think, has to be forced into at least, low to mid 20s. Yeah. And it's a nice spot against Chicago. He's insanely productive whenever he plays, over a fantasy point per minute guy. So, yeah, I'm right there. I love Barea today.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, I have him in for 24 minutes right now. If he gets anything over that, it's just gravy.
Yeah, and I haven't done the math, but I would suspect that 24 minutes of JJ Barea is better than 34 minutes of Ryan Arcidiacono.
I would imagine that's absolutely true. I've got Barea in, it's just 27.3 DK points in 24 minutes. I've got Arcidiacono in for 28 minutes and 19 DK points, so miles ahead of him. I would have to give Arcidiacono a lot more minutes to even be remotely close.
Yeah.
More than,
put him on
more than 48.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on anybody else from Dallas?
I don't think so. No. Dorian Finney-Smith, I guess, should probably play 26 to 28. He stands out as a guy that you can punt with on FanDuel if you wanted to, because blocks and steals are worth more there. Chicago is a team that you would expect him to run into some ceiling games against.
Okay. I don't get the sense we're going to have a ton to talk about here. The Memphis Grizzlies hosting the Utah Jazz. And like you said, I feel like they play constantly. 100.75 implied total for the Grizz, 103.75 for the Jazz. I would play a lot of Kyle Anderson on DraftKings and I would hate myself. That's pretty much the only take I have. Although Gasol, 28% expected ownership on DK. Conley, 18%. Jaren Jackson, 12. Kyle Anderson, 28. Do you want to have a lot of Memphis in this spot?
No, because I think that there's just so many, especially on DraftKings, where there's so many people that are underpriced. It's tough for me to prioritize a Memphis versus Utah game.
Yeah.
I I don't think I'll get to much Kyle Anderson just because I don't think I'll need it because of how underpriced guys are. But where I am interested is I think Jaren Jackson's interesting. He let everyone down as chalk on Saturday. And this is a spot where if he stays out of foul trouble, I think that you could see him be pretty productive because he's going to start at the 4 opposite Derek Favors. Then he's going to come in as the backup 5 or stay in as the backup 5. So he'll get a little bit of time against Gobert, but then he'll play more time against Derek Favors at the 5. So I think that he at least has a ceiling here. The downside on top of foul trouble is that we've already seen when these two teams play, we've seen situations where they just go super small to close the game. In the first matchup, Wayne Selden closed at the 4 over Jackson. So that would be the concern. Mike Conley obviously coming off of a great game, but 6,900 doesn't stand out as a great price in this spot. So I kind of doubt that I end up with a ton of him. Same really goes for Gasol when there are so many good centers cheaper than him.
Utah is second in free throw rate this season. That makes me concerned for Jaren Jackson's future. That's
He seems like he's got
stop fouling.
He's got it under control a little bit at least.
See where he's at on Box Score Geeks. I want to see what percentile he is. Why am I saying Box Score Geeks? Cleaning the glass. Box Score Geeks is not a site anymore that I'm aware of.
I was going to ask what that was.
It used to be a site. I don't know if they still have it. Box Score Geeks. I assume this is not updated any longer. November 6th? No, it still is. Holy shit. I haven't been here in a while. They redid the site. I like it. I still have positions. Ooh, I'm going to steal you. I'll come back to that. Anyway. What was I looking up? I lost all train of thought on Box Score Geeks.
Jaren Jackson foul rate.
Thank you, man. Thank you. See, I need somebody here to corral me. Thank God this isn't a solo show. This would be a disaster. Only 10th percentile, 5.9%. That's really bad. Real bad. Do you want any part of Utah? Because I got absolutely zilch on my first crunch.
I just don't really see it. No, I mean, it's a good Memphis team defensively, and the Utah guys just aren't priced down like so many other guys are on this slate. So, no.
Yeah, I'm with you. Only guy that I would think about would maybe be Derek Favors.
Yeah, he's the reason I hesitated right before I said no.
Okay, perfect. I think we've wrapped up that game. This one should be fun. Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the Brooklyn Nets. 113.75 implied total for the Timberwolves. 109.75 for the Nets. We're going to start on the Minnesota side. No more Jimmy Butler. Got Karl Anthony Towns. 10,300 on FanDuel. 8,900 on DK. We're projecting him to be 53% owned on DraftKings right now. And with good reason. But that kind of scares me. I'm with you, though. This is a great spot for Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I mean, I just am going to have trouble getting away from it because, for one, I kind of whenever we're talking about a deep position like center on a 9-game slate with a guy who isn't, $4,000, I doubt that he gets to 50. And even if he's like 35 or 40, I think that makes a big difference for me.
Yeah.
So it's just if you run numbers without Teague or Butler on the floor, and this is, not even counting Andrew Wiggins, who is questionable, but without Teague or Butler on the floor since the start of last season, Karl Anthony Towns has a 28.1% usage rate in 499 minutes. He has a 21% rebound percentage. He has a 13% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.38 DraftKings points per minute. And it's not like it's a bad matchup against Brooklyn. Jared Allen has done a good job defensively, as he should, with his, 7'6" wingspan. But Towns, the whole thing has just been assertiveness and opportunity for Towns. And opportunity should definitely be there. Assertiveness, I guess is anyone's guess, but there's just no reason for me not to like Karl Anthony Towns here.
I completely agree. I don't have much interest in Wiggins if he plays. I don't have much interest in Derrick Rose. He is priced very highly on DraftKings. I wouldn't be anywhere near that price point. I don't really have much interest in the FanDuel price either. I think we need to talk about the two new guys, Robert Covington, Dario Sarich. Do you have any expectations for these guys are you interested in them, particularly Covington on DraftKings, where he's only $5,000?
Yeah, I think at their price tags on DraftKings, I think both are interesting, but especially Covington, because I expect that he steps into a bunch of minutes here.
Yeah.
And it's, a spot against Brooklyn where I think he should be perfectly fine. You're going to, I think, run the same issues with Covington here as you did in Philadelphia, where he's more or less a 3 or D guy. And if he's not shooting well and not picking up steals, then you're getting empty minutes. But at 5K, I just have a hard time not being interested. I think I like Harrison Barnes more at the same price tag, but I think that Covington's a really good play. Sarich, I like the price tag, but the presence of Taj Gibson here just makes it so I think we're going to have to see how this works out, because even if Sarich does start like they've suggested he will, I kind of assume you get like 26 Sarich minutes, 22 Gibson minutes or something along those lines.
YouTube chat has 2 separate people saying that they're not playing tonight. Nope. That's
Okay,
3.
I still saw them questionable, so I didn't know.
Heading to Roto World now. Minnesota. Covington. Everybody's saying that they aren't playing.
Okay.
I'll
believe that.
I'm very surprised by that. I expected them both to be playing. The team announced that they won't make their debuts until Wednesday. Really? Why is that nowhere else? Why is that information not publicly available?
Where'd you find it at?
That's what the chat's telling us.
Yeah.
But that's info came from one of our competitors. So Labs is the only place that's talked about this. Do you see it? Like, are you looking for this right now?
Yeah, I'm looking. I just pulled up Roto World.
There's nothing on Roto World. Wolves reporter John Krasinski says unlikely, but more around shoot around. Info is not all over. It's literally not on the one place that I would go for this information. I generally trust Roto World's news, and they don't have updated news tags on the Timberwolves.
Okay, so I mean, if they don't play, then it's status quo, and Taj Gibson remains a good play.
Yep.
Anthony Tolliver takes the backup power forward minutes. If they do play, Covington's a good play.
Yeah, that'll work. That's fascinating. They're still on the Sixers roster on DraftKings?
Of course they are.
Yeah, that's what Chad is saying.
That's not particularly surprising.
Fantastic. Okay.
And they'll probably even have him in the player pool.
Well, look, then, Towns is the play. That's why he's 50% owned. I would probably come in under that number on DraftKings.
I'll probably come in I'll probably end up with 60. I don't know. I haven't crunched yet, but it's really going to come down for me, because I know he's going to be in as many lineups as I'll let him. It's going to come down to, am I able to get over the field on the other centers that I like on DraftKings, or am I going to have to take away some of my Towns?
I don't even think you can pick Covington and Sarich right now on DK per chat.
All right, that makes life easy then.
Yeah, cool. Glad we talked about this. Fucking waste of time. Yeah, Labs tweeted that they won't debut until Wednesday at the earliest, but I don't know why Labs is the only person tweeting that out.
Did they link a source?
No. They just answered Lil Carlos's question on Twitter. I don't know. We'll see. Pay attention around shoot around. It doesn't change anything about Towns, in my opinion, and it really only opens up Taj Gibson. So
yeah, I mean, and what's Rose's price tag on FanDuel? Because I still think Rose is a decent play. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a limited sample. He's only played 78 minutes alongside Towns without Teague or Butler. but he has a 35.2% usage rate. He's averaging 1.25 fantasy points per minute. Granted, he's shot the lights out over that stretch.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he still has upside. If he's going to be low owned, I would roll the dice on some. If people are going to keep just plugging and playing Derrick Rose at the elevated price tag, then I'll not.
Want to talk about Brooklyn since we just got Minnesota wrong?
Yeah, I have like nothing to say about Brooklyn.
I have one thing to say, and I'm nervous about it since you don't seem to like this. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, 4,500 on FanDuel. Is it crazy to want to have a lot of that?
I mean, is he going to play any minutes?
I have him in for 22. Does that seem optimistic to you?
Is someone out on Brooklyn? He played like 17 minutes against Golden State. And 8 of those were in garbage time.
Yeah.
He's just, they're not prioritizing him. They're still playing Jared Dudley. They have Damari Carroll back. You have Alan Crabb still eating minutes. You know, Ed Davis is still playing backup 5. Jared Allen's not coming off the floor. It's like I'm with you. I keep wanting to play Hollis Jefferson because he's going to have a game sooner or later, you would think, where he plays 26 minutes and just wins a tournament for somebody. But they're running such a deep rotation, and they've just shown no interest in playing him more minutes. I mean, it seemed like when he first came back from his injury that they were ramping his minutes up and that he was going to join the starting lineup soon. And then his playing time's just completely gone off a cliff.
You're absolutely right. I just knocked his minutes back down to 18. I will not have any Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. I am sad about it. Thank you for showing me the error of my ways.
Yeah, I mean, the only argument I could make for him, and it kind of seems unnecessary on a 9-game slate, would just be to do the thing that we do, like we've talked about doing with some players, where you project him to have that 26-minute game, and then you just cap him at 3% or 5% or whatever.
17% expected ownership right now on FanDuel. I'm gonna avoid that now.
Makes some sense on FanDuel, I guess, since you can just drop his terrible score, but
4,500.
That's too expensive to do that with, really.
It really is. All right. Do you want to talk about anybody on Brooklyn? Do you have Karis LeVert interest at 6,400?
It's okay. It's just that Brooklyn's running such a deep rotation. Like, Karis LeVert is my highest projected guy in terms of minutes, and I have him projected to play like 32 minutes. And it just gets really, really hard to get there because you're asking for very efficient shooting. You're asking for defensive stats for him to beat guys that are going to play 6 to 8 minutes more than him in the same price range. It's a good matchup and everything, but I just have trouble really getting there when there are so many other guys on the slate in that price range that I think project better.
God, Brooklyn is so unappealing. God, I really just cannot stand that team.
Yeah, I mean, every season they play 10 or 11 man rotations.
Yeah.
Like Jared Allen, I think, is the guy that I'd most likely get to here, just because I think he's talented. I think that he has a lot of defensive stat upside in this matchup, and he's only $5,100 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I would say that he has the most likely scenario to exceed his salary in like a big way. 5,100, he can blow that out of the water.
Right.
You want to move on?
Yeah.
3 games left. We'll go to Oklahoma City hosting the Phoenix Suns. Thunder 113 implied total, Suns 104.5. The tale of 2 defensive teams. Thunder incredible defensively from a fantasy perspective or just in general. Suns incredibly bad from everything perspective. We'll start with Oklahoma City. Paul George 10-3 on FanDuel, 9,700 on DraftKings. You ponying up for Paul George?
I like him. I just don't know. It's an awkward price point because on DraftKings he's $1,000 more than Kawhi. He's $1,000, around $1,000 less than Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
it's a really awkward spot. If I end up with him, then great. I like him. He's got around a 32% usage rate without Westbrook on the floor this season alongside Schroeder. He's got an assist percentage in the low to mid 20s. He led the team by a massive margin in their last game in potential assists with, I believe it was 17 of them. That's not something that I expect to continue, but it just goes to show how high the ceiling is for his role. And he's playing close to 38 minutes. So there's nothing bad that I have to say about Paul George. It just comes down to there being so many guys to like on this slate, and so many of them either at cheaper price tags or only a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, Paul George is $900 more expensive than Kawhi Leonard on FanDuel. I cannot imagine prioritizing George over Kawhi in that spot.
Right. They're very similar to me. I like George a little bit more in a vacuum, but
Yeah,
not for, you know, over 10% more.
agreed. What do you think of Schroeder? 7,200 on FanDuel, 7,300 on DK. He's very, very popular on FanDuel.
I still like the price. I think that he should be better than he has been so far. And there's a couple of reasons for that. For one, you look at his minutes alongside Paul George this season without Westbrook on the floor, he's got a 29% usage rate. So the usage is there. He has a 22% assist percentage, which on its own is fine. But I think that comes up because not only has he run bad this season in terms of assists overall, he has a 26% actual assist percentage compared to a 30% expected assist percentage. But the fact that he has a 26% actual assist percentage this season overall, and he only has a 22% assist percentage without Westbrook on the floor, makes me think that he probably, if you kept playing this situation out for the rest of the season, that despite getting unlucky, it just increases anyway in terms of potential assists and opportunities there. It doesn't make sense to me that Paul George continues to steal this many assist opportunities from Schroeder. So I think that his price tag still just leaves a lot of room for upside.
I completely agree. I understand why he's 44%. I'm going to be playing a decent amount. The guy that I don't really understand why he's so chalky, at least on FanDuel, Jeremy Grant, 5,500 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. We have Grant projected for 34% ownership. Is something up that I'm not like? Why 34? Why is he the chalk power forward?
Yeah, I mean the minutes are nice, but he's still around the 0.75 to point 0.8 per fantasy point per minute guy.
Yeah,
I project him for about 32 minutes. He can run into some good games. It's a good matchup and everything, but he's not someone that I would want to have most of my, a third of my night relying on.
especially on a 9-game slate with
Right.
everything that's out there.
Yeah, and there's just so many underpriced guys that this is not a slate where we're going to be scrambling like, oh man, I guess I'll just eat 25 points from this, or 30, 25, 28 points from this $4,800 guy so that I can fit in, someone else. Like there's just so many underpriced guys. It's not going to be that hard to find upside at a cheap price tag.
Yeah, I hope that ownership stays where it is. I'd be happily nowhere near it. Any Adams for you?
It's tough to prioritize him. It's not a spot that I dislike, but without Westbrook, he basically it's kind of like a neutral change for him because he gets less usage, he's less involved offensively, but he does get more rebounds. So far this season, he's played 163 minutes without Westbrook, and with George and Schroeder on, he's averaged just shy of a fantasy point per minute. But if you go back to last season, he ends up coming in at about 0.9 fantasy points per minute. So it's perfectly fine. It's just I can't prioritize him over all the other guys around him.
Phoenix 21st in effective field goal percentage offensively. They are 27th in the league in rebounding both offense and defense. This could be a big game for Steven Adams on the glass.
How have they been as far as offensive rebounds allowed?
They are.
I'm trying to pull it up.
They're 27th in both.
Okay, so yeah, I mean it is a really good spot for Adams. There's no questioning that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to wake up tomorrow and find out that Steven Adams had a monster day. He's at 16% ownership on DK, so it's not like it's a secret or anything like that. But
yeah,
I mean, Phoenix is not a good shooting team, and they're not a good rebounding team, and that plays directly into Steven Adams' hands. Let's talk about Phoenix. Unless you have anybody else you want to touch on from OKC from a value perspective.
No, Phoenix is good.
Good. Booker, 7,500 on FanDuel, 7,900 on DraftKings. I love him for 7,500. That's a really nice price. Tons of upside. Terrifying matchup defensively. But, I mean, Booker can shoot his way into a big game anywhere. Only 13% expected ownership right now. I am just above the field. And as I start adjusting, trimming exposure to other people, like I have way too much Dennis Smith and Ben Simmons. I think I'm going to end up with quite a bit of Devin Booker at 7,500. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll probably be right there with you. I just love the price tag. It's a really tough matchup, obviously, but the price tag, I think, factors that in. And Booker's, one of these guys that he's going out there with a 30+% usage rate, and he's picking up assists as well. He has an expected assist percentage this season at 26.6%, which is significantly lower than his actual 34% rate. But even if you project 26.5%, that's a lot of assists for him. 32.6% usage so far this season. I just think the price tag's too cheap for the minutes and the upside that he gives you. And he's certainly someone that I would be wanting to pair with like Paul George if I roster him.
Completely agree. What about Ayton? I think I hate him more than anybody else in the league. Not like I have a problem with him. It's fun to watch. Like, I don't have an aversion to DeAndre Ayton, but I feel like he gets talked about a lot, and I can't really figure out why, other than we think that he's better than he is right now. I don't see it.
I mean, I think he's really productive from a fantasy standpoint because he just does so much on the floor. And he scores, but he also rebounds. He picks up assists. He's just really athletic and contributes in a lot of ways. And the price tag's pretty nice. It's a brutal matchup. It's a really deep position. So I kind of doubt that I end up prioritizing him. I think I would rather go to Steven Adams at a similar price point, between the two of them. So I think, to me, where Ayton would have the most appeal is if I, ended up with like mini game stacks here.
7,100 on FanDuel is the cheapest his price point has been all year. That's kind of appealing to me.
Yeah, 68 on DraftKings is nice.
Yeah, might have overreacted a little bit early. I didn't realize the price had come down. When he was in the 8s, I really didn't like it.
What'd you say?
I said when he was in the 8s, I really didn't like it.
Yeah, he's been relatively inexpensive on DraftKings like all season long, which I think is one reason that I've been playing him a lot more than you.
He's basically never in a lineup for me on FanDuel.
Yeah, center in general on FanDuel has been a lot more expensive than DraftKings.
Yeah, he's the cheapest of everybody relevant, I think. But yeah, it's not a guy that I'm going to be rostering on FanDuel at all. A little bit more interested at 7,100, hoping to see it drop maybe another $100, $200, make it a little bit better. The resurgence of TJ Warren, 5,800 on FanDuel, 5,500 on DK. Are you interested?
Absolutely. I have no idea how this guy was 16% owned on Saturday. He's back in the starting lineup. He's not splitting minutes down the middle with Ryan Anderson anymore, who I believe, if I remember correctly, caught a DNP on Saturday. You have TJ Warren back in his 34 to 36 minute role, and he's just still too cheap because his price tag hasn't rebounded quickly enough after his start to the season where he was playing 24 minutes a game. He's a high usage guy. He does a little bit of everything on the floor. So yeah, I love TJ Warren. I think that if he is projected a lot lower owned than Harrison Barnes at a similar price tag, he makes for a really good pivot. But even just getting him alongside Barnes, I think gives you a ton of upside, and helps you save some money.
I can't believe he went from not really playing to start the season to going right back to old TJ Warren.
It was really weird to me, just because it was an entire philosophy change or something. At no point in the season should the Suns have thought, man, we need to get Ryan Anderson these minutes to be a good team or to play competitive basketball or for the future or anything.
Yeah.
So it was like they were just set on playing Ryan Anderson 24 minutes, and TJ Warren could only play 24 minutes. And then suddenly they just kicked Ryan Anderson to the curb, as they should have. But it was just really weird the way that it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't get it, but he is certainly in play again and projected for almost no ownership, which I am very interested in. Do you want to talk about anybody else in Phoenix? It's not that appealing of a spot.
Yeah, it's not a great spot. I think there's going to be enough value that opens up that you don't need to prioritize someone like Isaiah Cannon, even though he will play a bunch of minutes and he's cheap.
Right.
Same for Trevor Ariza. They're cheap. They're going to play a bunch of minutes, but I think that there's just enough value on this slate that we don't need to go there.
Perfect. To Sacramento we go. Kings 107 implied total. Spurs 110. So Spurs 3-point favorites in Sacktown. We're starting in Sacramento. Buddy Hield 7,300 on FanDuel, 6,600 on DK. I like Buddy Hield here. I don't know why I'm starting to like Buddy Hield, but I'm coming around.
He's okay to me. I don't have an issue with him, but my concerns would be, well, for one, his shooting has started to come back closer to his season averages, which is nice because we don't have to keep talking about that anymore. But the minutes are there. The concern I have is that I think the presence of Bogdanovich makes his minutes floor a little bit lower. When Bogdanovich isn't playing, you don't really have anyone that can take Hield's minutes if he's having a bad shooting game or if
Yeah.
he's struggling defensively or whatever, because you're not going to put in Yogi Ferrell or Frank Mason or whoever. Bogdanovich is pretty good. And he's someone that I think you see kind of start to siphon minutes from some combination of Hield and Shumpert and Justin Jackson. I would expect it to normally be, the Jackson, Troy Williams, Shumpert grouping. But if Hield's just having a bad game, it can easily be Hield. So I think it makes the floor a little bit lower. And then just the fact that he's priced near so many guys that I like at multiple positions, but that mid 6K range is just so deep today that I don't really see myself ending up with a whole lot of Hield. Plus, on DraftKings, he's priced really closely to De'Aaron Fox, who I just always prefer.
That was the next guy on the list. De'Aaron Fox, 8,300 on FanDuel, 7,100 on DraftKings. I really like that price point for him on DK.
Yep, so do I.
And we're projecting basically no ownership to this entire Sacramento Kings team, which I think is probably a mistake. I would say that Willie Cauley-Stein at 6,200 is also a pretty tasty play. Do you like anything else in Sacramento? He's dead to you?
Dead to me.
Why is he dead to you?
Because I needed him to not pick up his fourth and fifth foul in the third quarter for like 50K the other night. And he
Spoiler alert, he picked up that foul?
Yeah, and then just never came back in the game. It was a lot of fun. But, I really like the price tag on Cauley-Stein. Somehow his price is dropping. He is playing like 34 minutes a night when he doesn't get in foul trouble. And he's well over a point per minute guy. So I don't know how he has stayed in the mid 6Ks. I don't know how he's dropping to the, to 6,200. But I really, really like Cauley-Stein. He also has some extra defensive stat upside with DeMar DeRozan driving to the rim as frequently as he does. It's not a spot where I expect him to have trouble getting rebounds against, a smaller San Antonio front court. So, yeah, I really, really, really like Cauley-Stein here.
Completely agree. It's a great spot on DraftKings. I'd have a hard time doing 7,500 for him on FanDuel. I wouldn't have a problem with it, but it's just such a grab bag. Do you want to touch on anybody else from Sacramento? Have I turned you on to Marvin Bagley yet?
No, he's still playing 0 minutes alongside Bjelica.
I know. I'm just going to ask that question anytime the Sacramento Kings play. I'm on Team Bagley.
Well, I was looking at something for projected minutes before I've hashed everything out, and it has Bjelica projected for like 28, and it has Bagley projected for like 26, and I was like, oh, did they start playing next to each other? No.
I wonder where you were looking.
Yeah,
I have a guess.
Yeah, you'd probably be right, but yeah. So I mean, he's not playing minutes at the 5 still because Costa Koufos has to play, and he's not playing minutes alongside Bjelica. So it still is strictly blowout run or Bjelica foul trouble, or that's about it.
There we go. Sacramento said, nope. San Antonio said, different team, completely different team. We have to talk about what I would say is the best play of the slate, maybe. And he's not even getting that ownership. Derek White is $4,300 on DraftKings and $6,300 on FanDuel. What do you think of Derek White as a DK play? And clearly not a FanDuel play.
I think that it's interesting. I do think that Rudy Gay being back is really, really concerning because not only do we not know how the minutes are going to play out, you had Derek White play 30 minutes against Houston. You had Bryn Forbes play 30 minutes against Houston. You had minutes. We don't know exactly if those minutes are going to flatten out a little bit, but Gay's just another really high usage guy that is now joining DeRozan and Aldridge and makes me a little bit more concerned about Derek White. So I don't mind him. He's not someone that I'm going to be taking a huge stand on. I don't think. I'll still spread that exposure out to some other guys in that price range too.
Okay. Are you looking to DeRozan or Aldridge at all? Well, I barely even got Aldridge out as a word. That was terrible.
I think the spot's nice. I still just have trouble getting to DeRozan at a $9,300 price tag because I think that his price is just elevated from his start to the season where he has been running an unsustainable assist percentage. He's been really, really efficient scoring, which that can continue. But I just don't see him as a $9,000 player. I think Aldridge is much more appealing at 8,100. FanDuel, where you have to roster the two power forwards, I think it makes sense. So I really like the matchup for Aldridge. Still not sure how much I'll get, just because 8,100 is it's an awkward price point on this slate on DraftKings.
Yeah. Very chalky on FanDuel. 8,400 for Aldridge. Projected 29% ownership. That might be the highest at the position. It is. Nope. Second highest behind Jeremy Grant. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing at power forward, but I think it's going to look a little bit different than the public. Do you want to touch on anybody else from San Antonio, or do you want to close this out with Clips and Warriors?
No, I think we can go to the Clips game.
Here we go. Clippers 116.75 implied total. Warriors 119.75. Highest total game on the slate. Clippers 3-point underdogs at home. We'll start on the Clippers side. Tobias Harris, 8K on FanDuel, 7K on DraftKings. I think there's a pretty nice spot for Tobias Harris and a pretty nice price tag. What about you?
I think so too. The only issue I have is I have trouble paying like $1,000 more for Tobias Harris than I do for Gallinari, because they have very, very similar usage. You get a couple more minutes from Harris. You get a little bit more rebounding from Harris. But I just don't think that in terms of upside, it's really worth the price difference. So I haven't really been playing all that much Harris this season.
I get that. Gallo looks like a fantastic play for 5,600 on DK. I would want to have them both.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. But I also prefer Montrezl Harrell.
I agree. 6,500 on FanDuel, not super appealing, but 5,600 on DK looks nice. A lot of these guys look a lot better on DraftKings. Gilgeous-Alexander, Pat Bev. You like those guys for value?
Yeah, depending on Avery Bradley, who's questionable. Yeah. But if Bradley's out, then I assume you'll still, once again, see Gilgeous-Alexander start alongside Beverly. And that's just really solidified the Pat Beverly minutes, because he doesn't have his direct backup in Gilgeous-Alexander there anymore. And it just makes it a lot easier for him to stay on the floor. So I think that you get, 30 plus from Beverly if Bradley's out, with ease, with the chance to play like 34 to 36. And then Gilgeous-Alexander, you can project for low to mid 30s as well.
No thanks on Lou Will for me. We don't have to beat that drum any longer. Clark Terrell in chat says Gallo has no upside.
He has like the highest usage rate on the team outside of Lou Williams.
Yeah.
And Boban.
Yeah. Pour one out for Boban, I guess. A brief run. Flew too close to the sun. Or something. I don't know.
So, just for comparison, if you look at rates and compare Gallinari to Tobias Harris, his usage rate is 1 percentage point higher. His rebounding percentage is about 3.5% lower. His expected assist percentage is about 2 points higher. So he more or less is Tobias Harris, just for less.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on Team Gallo here. I'd rather have the extra $1,400. Talk about the Warriors side. Kevin Durant, 11-3 on FanDuel, 11,000 on DraftKings. But it's hard not to want to focus on Kevin Durant when Steph Curry is not on the floor, and potentially no Draymond. But for right now, I have him in. What do you want to do with Kevin Durant tonight?
Play as much of him as I can.
I agree.
He gets such a bump across the board without Curry or Draymond. Even if Draymond comes back, I wouldn't expect that to have a huge impact. I'm double checking those numbers now, but he gets a rebounding bump, he gets a usage bump, he gets an assist bump, and basically what he turns into is a ball handling point guard who averages the same usage rate that we see him like in the games that Curry plays. When Durant gets hot and Curry defers to him, he normally comes out of those games with like a 33 or a 34% usage rate. That's what he averages in these games without Steph Curry.
Yeah.
So, and that's on top of all the ball handling and assists that he picks up. So it's just too good of a spot for me not to want to play Kevin Durant.
I completely agree. It's too good. The 119.75 implied total is very helpful. Wow, Golden State first in effective field goal percentage, both offensively and defensively. Terrifying. Draymond, if he's in.
Yeah. I think Draymond's fine if he's in. I'm getting Yeah, he's played Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Draymond have played 470 minutes together since the start of last season without Curry on the floor. Draymond gets a bump. He has a 32.8% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. Durant gets a bump. 31.3% usage, 25% assists, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. Klay Thompson doesn't get shit.
Yeah.
But Draymond and Durant, I like both. And keep in mind with Durant as well that, if you look at the game log, it's easy to be like, oh, yeah, he got 60. I don't really want to pay 11K for 60 points or whatever. He did it in 3 quarters. It was a blowout. He's just such a monster without Curry out there.
Gotta have him. Best play of the day, in my opinion, and I think yours.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you want to do any Quinn Cook 5,400 on FanDuel, 5K on DK?
Cook's fine. Just know what you're getting. I think if Draymond's back, that is a hit on Cook because it's less assists. He's going to have to deal with Kevin Durant having the ball and Draymond having the ball.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a pretty big hit for Quinn Cook. If Draymond's out, I like Cook a little bit more, but still keep in mind that Kevin Durant's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Quinn Cook obviously had a monster game against Brooklyn. He shot 11 for 15 or 11 for 16 from the field. 1, him getting 16 field goal attempts is really unusual. Yeah. 2, him making 11 of them is not sustainable. And 3, he did a lot of his he was really good, but then he kind of just cherry on top went nuts in the fourth quarter of garbage time. So it's not to say that Quinn Cook is a bad play, but I don't think that we should be expecting him to go out there and throw 35 points up with regularity. And I think it is a big hit if Draymond's back.
You summed it up perfectly for me. I'm going to have a lot of Kevin Durant. I'm going to have a decent amount of Draymond Green if he's playing, and I'll take a peek at Quinn Cook. But I don't have anything else for the Warriors. Do you?
No. Love Durant, love Green. And then from the other side, Montrezl Harrell's my favorite play probably.
Okay. You want to go position by position? Get out of here?
Yeah.
Start. FanDuel side, point guards. I'm going to actually be playing a decent amount of Ben Simmons. I'll have some Dennis Smith. I won't be happy about that. I do not understand the chalk of Goran Dragic, and I will not be following suit with that. But JJ Barea looks like the best paydown option on FanDuel today.
Yeah, really like Barea. I like De'Aaron Fox. I'm having trouble getting my stuff to pop up in front of me. Dennis Smith Jr.'s price tag I think is really appealing. Obviously, he still has no floor, but the price tag's nice. It's a position in general, though, that I think I would like to pay. John Wall, obviously, on DraftKings. But outside of him, I think I would like to pay down at and try and be able to pay up elsewhere.
Shooting guard. I do like DeMar on FanDuel. I love Devin Booker. I love Dennis Schroeder. I like JJ Redick. I might even have a little bit of Fultz. Don't hate me. Terrence Ross looks like a very nice value as well. Not a lot else to go around at shooting guard today.
Yeah, I love Zach Lavine. I would like to play Kawhi here as well on DraftKings where I can. Devin Booker's too cheap. Bradley Beal's too cheap. You can play Derrick Rose here if you wanted to, but I like all 4 of the guys that I just named more than him.
There you go. Small forward, this one's really easy. I'm going to have an overwhelming amount of exposure to both Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard. Harrison Barnes is a very easy value play to just plug in. After that, we're looking at, I don't know, maybe a little bit of Andrew Wiggins if he plays. This is a really just play Durant and Kawhi, and I might just do that.
Yeah. I want to get to Durant as much as I can. If I can't get there, then Paul George and Ben Simmons, I think, are both perfectly fine. I like Harrison Barnes towards the bottom. I like Jabari Parker. I like TJ Warren.
Dude, Kush in the YouTube chat is going a little insane here. Y'all sleeping on Cook. He's going to be starting for another team real soon. He's too good to sit behind Curry for much longer. Other teams will want him, just like the Rozier situation.
How does that affect fantasy performance when he's playing with Kevin Durant?
He's also not comparable to Terry Rozier, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A little bit of a gap in skill set. I like Cook. He's a perfectly capable backup point guard.
Yeah, he's not bad at all.
Yeah, but he's like, what, the 35th best point guard in the league or something?
Right.
Power forward. I'm a little nervous about AD. little nervous about the exposure to Lamarcus Aldridge, so I think that I'm going to be a little bit lower on power forward in general. I want some Draymond if he's playing. I want some Aaron Gordon if he's playing. I'm going to have some Jaren Jackson and not be happy about it. Markieff Morris is probably the main appeal for me, but man, power forward is just a ghost town of talent today.
Yeah, not great. And on DraftKings, I'll be using a lot of Gallinari and Parker here. Draymond Green, Gordon if he plays. Obviously, agree with you on Keefe as well. And then Montrezl Harrell, I think, is really valuable on DraftKings since he's power forward eligible. It's a game where I expect him to get the huge bulk of the minutes at center. I don't expect Boban to step on the floor. I don't expect Gortat to play a lot. So I love Montrezl Harrell as a power forward.
Center. I love Joel Embiid, and I'm going to have a decent amount of him tonight. Sign me up for some Towns, especially if everybody is out. And then DeAndre Jordan, I think, is my favorite guy that I would pay down for. I want to like Dwight more, but I'd feel more comfortable with DeAndre. It's just too good of a matchup.
Yeah, tons of Towns for me. I like DeAndre a lot. I like Howard a lot. I like Cauley-Stein a lot.
There we go. Like and subscribe, everybody. It's super helpful for us. NBA Strategy is the promo code, 7-day free trial. Pick any package you would like. If you're trying to try out Fantasy Cruncher, make sure you pick a package that includes Fantasy Cruncher. Later today, we will have Laffy writing the deep dive. We will have Adam and Laffy back for the deeper dive starting at 5 o'clock. We will have Live Before Lock, myself and Eddie Fear, going from 6 all the way up until 7. Adam, anything else?
No, deeper dive around 4:45, 5 o'clock with Laffy and myself.
There you go, everybody. Monday in the books. Happy Veterans Day. We will talk to you again later.